Good morning. I'm Ed Trout, and I am a member here, serve on the praise team, and it is my privilege and pleasure to get to speak to you this morning. This entire month, being the month that houses Thanksgiving, we are focused on gratitude, and gratitude in a variety of forms. Last week, Louise Dunn talked about having gratitude for that essential inner guidance. And in fact, Louise, in her talk, gave us a prompt, gave us a little bit of homework. And that was to send some messages to people who had helped us in our life to find that inner guidance. 3 messages within the week to people who had helped us and people we appreciated finding that guidance from. There's no shame in this, but who in this room got at least one of those messages sent this week? Great. And if you're on Facebook and you want to type in, "I did!" exclamation points, that's great. Again, there's no shame if you didn't, but I think we are at a time that we are all challenged to rise to our best, and part of that includes finding gratitude. And I really want to take that expression from Louise of reaching out to those people as sort of the jumping off point for today and finding our gratitude for others. There's an article from Forbes that was from a few years back. The article was from Omaid Humayun, and Omaid had a moment in his life when things took a turn for the worse. He lived out on the West Coast. He had gotten a call when he was on his way to an event that his father had gone into the hospital, and so he left his plans and made it to the hospital, but did not get there before his father had passed away. His father made his transition from a heart attack, and Omaid was so struck by that grief, and it didn't help the timing that he had just missed that death. In fact, his father's body was still warm when he got there, and from that point, he was there with his sister, by the way. His mother, or their mother, was in Afghanistan, so it was just the two of them dealing with this death in that immediate. But from that moment, his life started spiraling down. And I think many of us in our lives have experienced some kind of a grief cycle, especially where our life can start kind of getting into that spiral. And he had noticed, amongst other things, his health was deteriorating because of it. So, as most of us do, he tweeted Tony Robbins, yes, renowned motivational speaker and author Tony Robbins. He tweeted him, and surprise of surprises, Tony tweeted him back. And there was some advice given, some exchange there, and as it ended up, Omaid got some of Tony's tapes and started listening, and what he said was that he didn't get what it was he wanted from that, which was help with his health and turning that around, but what he got was what he needed, which was a lesson on gratitude. And that is so often the case with us, right? We reach out for what we think we want, and we may not get that, but we will always in some fashion get what we need. After that exchange and the tapes and so forth and that little bit of refocus, it turned out that Omaid found on his own bookshelves a book called A Simple Act of Gratitude by the author John Kralik. He had no idea how that book had gotten there. He didn't remember buying it, didn't remember receiving it as a gift, but it was there nonetheless. So he read through that book, and that book is the story of John Kralik, who had himself hit this real low in his life. He was a lawyer living in LA in a small, cramped apartment with no air conditioning. He was on his second divorce. His health was not good. He was having trouble getting the income from his clients in a timely manner, if at all, which made it then difficult for him to pay his obligations to his own employees. He was just at this low ebb. And he came to a realization that he needed to find that gratitude. So what he did was challenge himself to write a note, a thank you note, one a day for an entire year. every day he would focus on somebody that he could send a thank you note to for 365 days. Now, it's not a surprise to most people in this room or watching on Facebook. We're aware of how much our thoughts and our focus affect what we experience. And that shift of gratitude, that shift of focus, took him from that deep despair, that ego mindset where we look at the world and all we see are the problems. Every day we get up and we look at our problems, and we try to fix the problems that we have and the problems of the world. And we forget and we overlook all of those things for which we should be thankful. When you change that mindset, you change your life. So John's book ultimately is about someone who thought he didn't have anything to be thankful for until he actually started intentionally looking for it. Let's be honest, none of us live in a vacuum, right? As we are moving through our lives, we encounter so many positive things, positive people, good things that happen to us. That's not to say we don't have our challenges. And maybe you are somebody that you grow your own food and you make your own clothes and all of that, and that's great. If you are really self-reliant, that's awesome. And produce your own electricity, I don't know. No matter how self-reliant though you are, you did not get there alone. I can guarantee at some point in your life, there were some form of parent figures that brought you into this world, even if they didn't see you after you were brought into the world. There was some form of parent figure who made sure that you survived your childhood. Even if there were problems and traumas, they helped you to get to the point where you are. Even if you raised all of your own food, I guarantee there were generations before you that found ways to cultivate those seeds and find better harvests and fruit and vegetables that would grow with more produce and be more resistant to pests and so on. On and on. People in our lives, as well as generations before, to whom we owe this debt of gratitude for everything that we take for granted in our lives. We did not get here on our own. We just came through Dia de Muertos, right? The looking at those who have already moved on and appreciating their contributions to our lives. And that focus, that realization that I have this to be thankful for, whether or not it is in the forefront of my mind every moment, I can look at it at least once a day and say, this is something I have to be thankful for. And here's part of the tough part. That includes those people who challenge us. We have just come through a very contentious election season. And to be honest, we're not fully through it. So there are people who will espouse views that are different than yours. There are people who will espouse views that are different than mine. I have close family and close friends who see things and see the world very differently than I do. It's easy to fall into an argument. It's much harder to do what we are challenged to do, which is to seek to understand, and then to appreciate that other point of view for what it brings to us. None of us in this room or watching on Facebook or listening to a recording later, none of us have all of the answers. So every time we hear a differing point of view, guess what? There's a different part of an answer in there that may not have occurred to us in the first place. It's up to us to listen to it with understanding and with compassion, and then realize that is a gift, even when it challenges us. Our word for this month, we had the affirmation, that word of interconnection, the affirmation, like rivers flowing from one source. We are all connected. Thank you. We so easily lose sight of that because our ego gets in the way. And, I talked just a moment ago about that earlier sort of ancestral line and looking back to where we came from and how we got here, and whether it's a direct bloodline or whether it's our cultural line, whether it's the people who developed the society we live in or what have you. I think it's helpful to look back at the mitzvah, the commandment of honoring our father and mother. We are honoring those who came before us. We are honoring how we got where we are. And for those that know me, it wouldn't be me if I didn't look at least one word and break down that word. In the Hebrew, in that Hebrew mitzvah, the word for honor is kabed, and it is the same letters, kaved, there's like one dot's difference, but it's really the same letters as the word for heavy. So essentially what that commandment is really telling us is for those people that brought us to where we are, we need to give to them that gravity, that sense of weight that is importance, right? There's an importance to what has brought us to where we are. It does not say, by the way, that you have to give them blind obedience. And in fact, I love the fact that when you look at those Old Testament, you have Abraham, who disagreed with God, who argued with God, but did so without ever losing respect for God. That's what we're talking about in looking at those that came before us and those around us even now. Give them their due respect, give them that proper weight. It doesn't mean you're going to agree about everything, but I can still honor you. I can honor those that came before me. I can honor those around me now. So when we look at all of that interconnectedness of the past and of our present, as I said, it's really easy to take for granted some of those things. We might take for granted the fact that our mail arrives on a regular basis. I know for a lot of people here, we personally lost a friend who's a letter carrier, so we may be a little more in tune. But it's easy to take that for granted. It's easy to take for granted that we get running water. It's easy to take for granted that we have all of these things around us. So I want to give you a moment to think about this, and for those of you on Facebook, you can go ahead and type in too. You have a little more of a lag, so I'm giving you some time to ponder this. But I want you to think, 1, 2, 3 people or gifts that you take for granted on a regular basis. What is in front of us regularly? What is in front of you? Who is in front of you or around you or came before you that you don't normally recognize? Maybe it's a teacher you have not thought of for 20, 30 years who taught you that one lesson that made all the difference, right? Maybe it's just the fact that you had teachers. But who in your life do you take for granted or have you taken for granted? Think about that for a moment. I want to move on to a little bit of a discussion of gratitude from the co-founders of Unity, Myrtle Fillmore and Charles Fillmore. They both have extensive writings. And for Myrtle Fillmore, she called gratitude and thanksgiving qualities of the soul. The practice of thanksgiving, she said, should be observed in the home every day of the year, not just on that national holiday of Thanksgiving. She wrote that we should get in the habit of truly thinking about where the food came from every time you sit down to eat. And then when we think back to that spirit, that great life that makes vegetables and fruits grow, then it would come to our minds that great praise whenever we ate. Thanksgiving for good may be likened to the rain that falls upon the ready soil, refreshing vegetation and increasing the productiveness of the soil. Praise is gratitude in action. If we feel grateful, that's wonderful. But if we want to put that into action, we express it. We give praise. And that expression is taking our gratitude into action, putting it back out into the world. From Charles Fillmore, from his Dynamics for Living book, he said, in spirit, praise accumulates. In sense consciousness, this faculty is called acquisitiveness. It accumulates material things. Praise opens the portal of the mysterious realm called the superconsciousness, where thought is impregnated with an uplifting, transcendent quality. Every lofty ideal, all of the inspiration that elevates and idealizes in religion, poetry, and art originates here. It is the kingdom of the true and real in all things. Praise opens that gate. So you've had a little bit of a moment to think about those for whom we may just take things for granted. So Michael, if you want to, nothing on Facebook? Okay, and that is fine. I wanted to give them a chance. So in this room, who do you realize perhaps you have taken for granted, overlooked in your life? Who has there been? Grandmothers? Grandfathers. Anyone else?
From Facebook.
Yes.
I take my family, mother, father, and my brother and his family for granted.
Yeah, family, and again, it doesn't mean that they don't challenge us, but we often take them for granted, the challenges and the blessings. Anyone else? Any other aspect of your life?
I'm thankful for water. We have water so easily when so many don't.
Right. That water in this world, and this is the kind of thing I'm talking about, like for so many of us, it's taken for granted that we will have clean, fresh water to use. And yet, we know that water scarcity around the world is a major issue for so many. We can just go buy a bottled water, we can turn on the faucet, maybe we use a Brita pitcher and filter it, but we are so blessed. And how many people had to come before us to lay literal groundwork for that? It's all part of that interconnectedness that we need to be grateful for. So, in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 18, it says, "Rejoice always, pray continually, and give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus." And I think for many of us, those concepts of, I can find that joy, and I'll certainly pray, and I'll give thanks for those good things. But that's not what it says. It says give thanks in all circumstances. We cannot always see the full interconnectedness. We know it's there. So again, when we have our challenges, give thanks for that. Certainly give thanks for the things you know benefit you and benefit the world, but give thanks for our challenges as well. Give thanks in all circumstances. And now, building off of Louise's challenge, I want to extend that challenge a little bit more. I know many people within Unity keep gratitude journals, which is a lovely practice. If you already keep a gratitude journal, I want you to extend that practice a bit. A gratitude journal is normally something that you are writing for yourself to keep that focus positive, keep it on your gratitude and your thankfulness. But I want to take a page out of the earlier story. I would like to extend thank you notes. So the challenge is that through the rest of this year, it's less than 2 months, so you're not doing the whole year unless you choose to, but through the rest of this year, every day, you send a thank you message to someone for what they have brought to your life, even if that is a challenge. Now, it could be a literal thank you card that you mail to them. That's lovely. People love getting those handwritten cards. It could just be a phone call, which are also beautiful, a text message, an email, a note dropped in a mailbox, whatever. But one thank you a day through the end of this year, and see what shifts for you. Now, as I said, for people that keep gratitude journals, that's what I would love to see. If you do not yet keep a gratitude journal, I want to double your workload. I would love for you to start a gratitude journal where daily, for yourself, you look inward and you find those things for which you are thankful. And then still express that. Make that gratitude in action turn into praise by expressing it to somebody who is deserving of your gratitude. Let them know that one bit of praise that person gets can shift their day, shift their perspective, shift their life because they know they made a difference, a positive difference in your life. So turn your thanksgiving into praise and turn that gratitude into action. So gratitude journal and at least a note a day through the end of the year. I will also say, I know we come from all different places in life, and there may be people who are listening to this or in this room who are like, I don't have a journal. I don't really have the extra money to go buy a blank book. It doesn't literally have to be a blank book. You can just take scraps of paper if you want and write on those daily and then keep those bundled together. I will also say for somebody, if you need a journal, I've got several at home. I have lots of blank journals at home. If you really need one, reach out to me. I will get you a blank journal so you can start your gratitude journey. But it's important. It is important to look at our gratitude and to express it to those around us. I want to finish with a couple of readings. One is from an upcoming daily word. From the 23rd of this month, the word of that day is friendship. And here's what it has to say. I am grateful to have friends and to be a friend. Friends are treasures. They are the family we choose. A diverse group not related by blood, but by a feeling of belonging. I am grateful for my friends whom I can count on in good times and challenging times. Even when my friends and I are not in the same place, we are always connected in spirit. My friends are always ready to share a laugh or a tender moment and to lend emotional support when I need it. I give the same support and encouragement. I reach out to help when my friend is in need. I am the voice of reason and the person to lean on. I am present in times of joy, frustration, or sorrow. When my friend shares a concern, I listen with empathy and respond with honesty and compassion. And then finally, I want to close with a prayer. This prayer is from the Center for Spiritual Enlightenment, and it was shared by Yogacarya Ellen Grace O'Brien. This is called A Prayer for Healing Through the Generations. And considering this is somewhat meditative and prayer, go ahead, if you would, get your feet on the floor, hands in your lap, palms up, ready to receive. If you are comfortable doing so, close your eyes or at least lower your gaze. And if it feels appropriate, let this prayer coming from me and from Ellen Grace O'Brien stand in for you. This day, I open my heart and my mind with appreciation for my ancestors, my father and grandfathers before me, my mother and grandmothers before me. This day, I open my heart and my mind with appreciation for the path of my soul. I honor the paths of my ancestors who journeyed before me. This day I open my heart and my mind with appreciation for the earth. I give thanks for the gift of my body and rejoice in the opportunity for awakening that it brings. May my spiritual awakening be a cause for celebration in the generations before and after me. Through me, may healing come in our family, in our community, on our earth, in our world. Om, peace, and amen.